Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the 2017 MacBook Pro and see basically how this specific MacBook is holding up in 2023. Now, the weirdest thing that I just don't understand with this specific MacBook is that all of you people love this MacBook. Every single year that I've been talking about this specific device, it seems that this MacBook in particular, even last year, was one of the most viewed MacBook reviews that I personally had. So it's very interesting that people are kind of interested with this specific older style of MacBook, and that kind of shows one thing, that the interest and the people who are wanting to buy an older type of MacBook like this one are still there. People love MacBooks, and rightfully so. These are very good products. Now, this one in particular, I will say, probably from the 2016 to even like early 2020 MacBooks, there isn't really a big reason to buy these Macs anymore, especially now that the M1 model of MacBooks have been out, but especially considering the M1 models have been out for quite a bit of time. So you can buy them in the used market for cheap, not necessarily cheaper than these ones, but still very cheap compared to a lot of other Macs, and especially these ones, you might as well spend a little bit more money and buy probably a used M1 MacBook Air than buying like the maxed out MacBook Pro from 2017. So if you want to pick up those Macs, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of these MacBooks, visibly they look almost identically the same as pretty much every other Mac that Apple has made from 2016, even kind of now with the M2 MacBook Pro and the M1 MacBook Air. Those MacBooks kind of look identically the same to these ones. The styling is the same. You know, the MacBook Air obviously has that kind of tapered off edge, but with the M2 MacBook Pro, it is almost the same exact thing as this one, which is so crazy. Now, you do have the Space Gray. You had a couple different models you can choose from, at least in the coloring standpoint, which was always super nice to have. And with the MacBook Pro, with these ones, the build quality is just so good. From the first MacBook they made for that day and age up until now, the build quality of these MacBooks feel premium. I've owned a lot of PCs and a lot of devices, and MacBooks are almost always some of the best feeling, devices I've owned, which is so beautiful. So on the top, you have that Apple logo, which is awesome. Having that Apple logo that just shares you, just looks at you all the time is cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't glow up. That's one thing I really do miss, but it's totally understandable. You kind of have to, kind of get used to it at some point. On the top, there's really not much else going on for it. On the sides, though, you did have this interesting kind of style that, MacBooks kind of had at that moment. It was very weird, only 2 USB-C ports, and that was it. Since then, Apple has made massive improvements, and they've pretty much done a complete 180 on the direction they were going towards. So I think they listened to people, and like I said, if you plan on getting this MacBook, you're going to be getting a MacBook that Apple kind of knows now that wasn't the best one they could have made. So the 2 USB ports, it's great, you can connect them to monitors, you can do a lot of stuff with them. The only issue is that there was only 2 of them, at least for the 13-inch models. If you did go up to the 15-inch model, you were getting an additional 2 ports, which that one may have been a little bit better, but even then, compared to nowadays, we have our MacBooks that have 3 USB ports, an actual HDMI port, and an SD card slot. It is pretty hard to go from, one of these type of MacBooks to one of the older style 2017 ones now, to be honest, with way less ports. Now, you can still connect dongles and whatnot, but definitely it's one of those things that you're going to have to kind of keep in mind when you're going to be buying one of these older style of MacBooks. Now, on top of that, on the bottom, really not much else, just a standard, type of screws and stuff you can unscrew. Now, I do believe there were some things you could actually go ahead and kind of, interchange from the inside. I don't know if you could change from the amount of RAM or whatever you could from these devices, but these were some of the last devices and last MacBooks that you could actually change out some parts. So definitely keep that in mind. You can't change out everything, but there were probably a few things you could change out, which was actually kind of a nice thing that Apple kind of gave us during this moment, but it didn't really last too much longer, to be honest. So on the outside, that kind of covered it up. Now, some things I kind of do miss, like these MacBooks were very slim. They were very, very small, but also that 15-inch model was seemed a lot more portable than the newer 16-inch ones. So that was something that I did kind of like about that 15-inch style MacBook Pros. But beyond that, the 13-inch ones kind of still exist with the M1 MacBook Pro styling, so not really too much to kind of think about in that standpoint either. So from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there. Now, opening this MacBook up, you are getting probably one of the best looking screens out there still. Now, clearly, it doesn't have the 120Hz ProMotion that the latest MacBooks have, but still, it was a very, very good display. So they came in two different sizes, like I mentioned, 13-inch and the 15-inch models. And I definitely do think the 13-inch one very portable, but kind of too small for me. The 15-inch one was bigger, less portable, but it was a bigger display that looked really, really good. So I like these panels a lot, and even though they were 60 Hz, they were still very good 60 Hz panels, and even these 2017 MacBooks hold up very, very well in that standpoint too. So I personally feel like those MacBook displays, thumbs up for me for sure. Now on top of that, when we look at the bottom, these keyboards, had a little bit of a difference here too. So they did have touch bars on some of the MacBooks. If you were getting the 15-inch one, they all had touch bars. If you were getting the 13-inch one, only the top tier 13-inch one or the spec'd out one had an actual touch bar. You kind of had to, in a way, pay more for it. With the base 2017 one, apparently that one did not have a touch bar anymore, which was really cool. And I think that was a very smart thing that Apple did here. Do you want to know why? Well, it's basically because the touch bar ended up being removed. It was very glitchy. It just didn't really make too much sense for them to even make it in the first place. I like the aesthetic of it. I think it looked nice. Unfortunately, it just physically just did not work that well for a lot of people. And I'm very glad, again, Apple did a 180, and you can still get it on the M2 MacBook Pro, but the M1 Pro and the M2 Pro and the MacBook Airs do not have that touch bar anymore, which I think was a very, very smart thing that Apple, could have done. Now, that kind of covers it up for the things that we kind of know about, but the biggest problem that these MacBooks had was that butterfly keyboard. These keyboards caused Apple so many issues that it's so funny when looking back, because they just there were so many things they just kind of removed from their whole entire Apple lineup, and the butterfly keyboards was one of them. This was, in my opinion, probably the biggest L Apple's ever faced. In fact, I think they just wrapped up a lawsuit, like they just finalized the lawsuit and started paying people back if they had to take their MacBook, for the keyboard, to the store too many times or whatnot. So that actually ended up being an issue that Apple went ahead and kind of addressed there too. So it kind of haunts them for a while. Basically, these keyboards were failing, and even I've heard stories of people not even using their keyboards, that they would just have it docked up to a monitor 24/7, and every so often they would do it in portable mode, and even those keyboards would fail. So those keyboards were just destined to fail from the beginning, and I'm glad Apple learned their lesson. They went away from them, and now our keyboards are way more clickier, they're way better, and I just think that just made way more sense for them to make it these keyboards in the beginning than even those ones for those many years. So in terms of those things, those are kind of the worst things about this MacBook. I still think the performance is actually kind of okay for how old this MacBook is. I have a couple of different MacBooks, including a 2017 or 2018 MacBook Air, some other 2017 MacBooks, and my 2015 MacBook Pro. I will definitely tell you the number one thing that I hate so much about these MacBooks are the fans. The fans just kick on all of the time, even if not doing anything. My 2017 MacBook Pro, it actually has an okay battery, I think, for the most. Maybe the battery's bad, but the fans kick on all the time. My 2018 MacBook Air fans kick on all the time. My 2015 MacBook Pro fans kick on as soon as you even look at it. So those fans on those MacBooks, if you don't mind, it's not a big deal. But if you're recording audio like I am and you hear the fans in the background, that is a deal breaker. With the current M2 Pro and M1 Pro and even the M1 MacBook Air, those MacBooks, the fans are silent. Well, the MacBook Air doesn't have fans, but the ones that do, those fans are silent. And that is something I love about those Macs. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is I think the 2017 MacBook Pro is probably not worth it at all. I would clearly not recommend buying this MacBook anymore. If you currently own this MacBook, then keep it for as long as you can. But if you're actively trying to go out and buy these Macs, you would be so much better off. These things aren't even that cheap. If you kind of think about it, like $400 or $500, you can spend $600 or $700 and buy an M1 MacBook Air. An M1 MacBook Air would be such an exponentially better device than this MacBook. It would not even be fair. So I like the 2017 one. I think it kind of brought a lot to the table. I just don't really think it's worth buying at all in this day and age. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comments section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.